Have you ever woken up feeling more exhausted than when you went to sleep? I'm not talking about those occasional rough nights we all experience. I'm talking about that deep, soul-crushing fatigue that no amount of sleep seems to cure. That invisible weight pressing down on your chest the moment you open your eyes, making even the thought of leaving your bed feel like an impossible mountain to climb. If you've ever felt this way, you're not alone. And what I'm about to share with you today might finally explain what's really happening beneath the surface of your exhaustion. You see, there's something Edgar Cayce, one of the most renowned spiritual teachers and mystics of the 20th century, understood that modern medicine is only beginning to grasp. He taught us something profound, something that cuts right to the heart of why so many people today feel utterly drained despite living relatively comfortable lives. Cayce said, "The body rests, but the soul does not always." Think about that for a moment. Your physical body might be getting those recommended 8 hours, maybe even 9 or 10, yet you wake up feeling like you've been running a marathon in your sleep. Has this ever happened to you? But before we begin diving deeper into this mystery, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, here's what most people don't understand about this kind of exhaustion. When you drag yourself out of bed feeling depleted, when your bed becomes the only place in the world where you feel safe from the demands and judgments of daily life, there's a tendency to label it as laziness or weakness. Maybe you've heard this from well-meaning friends or family, or worse, from that critical voice inside your own head. But what if I told you that this overwhelming desire to stay cocooned in your bed isn't a character flaw at all? What if it's actually a distress signal from the deepest part of your being? Stay with me here, because this is where it gets truly fascinating. Edgar Cayce's readings revealed something that sensitive souls around the world are experiencing right now, in this very moment of human history. Your exhaustion isn't coming from your muscles or your physical body. It's emanating from a place most people don't even know exists. It's a cry for help from layers of your consciousness that operate beyond the physical realm, beyond what you can see in the mirror or measure with medical tests. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because the answer to why you can't seem to leave your bed goes far deeper than stress, depression, or any diagnosis you might have received. There's an entire dimension of exhaustion that science is only beginning to acknowledge, and it has everything to do with what's happening to your soul while your body lies still. Now, before we can truly understand what's happening to you, there are 3 hidden truths about exhaustion that will fundamentally shift how you see your own tiredness. These aren't the truths your doctor will tell you, and they're certainly not what you'll find in mainstream wellness advice. These are revelations that Edgar Cayce brought forth from his deep spiritual readings, truths that have the power to transform your entire relationship with rest, energy, and your own inner world. The first truth is this: your soul is asking for help, not showing weakness. Let that sink in for a moment. Every time you felt guilty for not getting out of bed, every time you've pushed yourself despite feeling utterly depleted, every time you've called yourself lazy or unmotivated, you were actually ignoring a legitimate distress call from the deepest part of your being. Your exhaustion isn't a character flaw or a failure of willpower. It's a message, a signal, a plea from your soul that something needs attention at a level far beyond the physical. You see, there's a type of fatigue that doctors can't measure with blood tests. It doesn't show up on scans or charts. It doesn't respond to vitamins, exercise routines, or sleep hygiene tips. Not because those things aren't valuable, but because this exhaustion exists on an entirely different plane of reality. Cayce called it perispiritual fatigue, and understanding this concept is like discovering a hidden dimension you never knew existed. The perispirit is your invisible body, the energetic template that surrounds and interpenetrates your physical form. It's the blueprint of your consciousness, carrying the imprints of not just this lifetime, but of everything your soul has experienced across countless existences. Think about that for a moment. Every decision you've made, every emotion you've suppressed, every trauma you've endured, every intense experience that shaped you, all of it leaves a mark, not just on your memory or your psychology, but on this subtle body that most people don't even know they have. And when this perispiritual body becomes overloaded, when it's carrying too much unprocessed energy, too many dense vibrations, too much accumulated weight from experiences both in this life and beyond, that's when you feel that inexplicable exhaustion that no amount of physical rest can touch. This is the hidden truth behind why some people can sleep for 12 hours and still wake up feeling like they haven't rested at all. Their physical body recharged, yes, but their perispirit remained active, working, processing, or worse, being drained by energies and influences they're not even aware of. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding what drains your perispiritual energy is absolutely crucial to reclaiming your vitality. There are invisible forces at play in your daily life, subtle interactions and environmental factors that are pulling energy from you constantly. And most people go through their entire lives without ever realizing what's happening. If this is resonating with you right now, if you're beginning to see your exhaustion in a completely new light, write in the comments, "I understand now." Let's create a space where tired souls can recognize each other and know they're not alone in this journey. So what exactly are these invisible forces that drain your perispiritual energy? Edgar Cayce's readings revealed something fascinating that modern energy workers and spiritual practitioners are now beginning to understand more clearly. He described what he called dense, fluid discharges. Think of them as energetic clouds or fog that literally stick to your spiritual body. These aren't metaphors or symbolic concepts. According to Cayce's revelations, these are actual energetic substances that accumulate on your perispirit day after day, layer upon layer, creating a heaviness that eventually becomes impossible to ignore. Where do these dense fluids come from? They're generated by heavy thoughts, both your own and those directed at you. They seep into your energy field from toxic environments where negativity hangs in the air like smoke. They're created by unresolved discussions that leave emotional residue clinging to you long after the conversation has ended. They're absorbed from people around you who are carrying their own energetic burdens, and through proximity alone, you become contaminated. The most unsettling part, most people have absolutely no idea this is happening to them. They walk through life wondering why they feel progressively more drained, more weighted down, more exhausted, never realizing they're accumulating invisible layers of energetic debris. Let me share a powerful example that illustrates just how real this phenomenon is. There was a woman who went to 5 different doctors, searching desperately for answers to her chronic exhaustion. Every medical test came back normal. Her vitamin levels were fine, her thyroid was functioning properly. There were no signs of anemia or any other physical condition that could explain why she could barely get out of bed most days. Her doctors were baffled. Some suggested it might be depression, others recommended lifestyle changes. But nothing made sense because she wasn't particularly stressed in the conventional sense, and she was already living a relatively healthy life. Finally, she sought out a spiritual reading, and what was revealed completely transformed her understanding of what was happening. She worked in an office environment that was absolutely saturated with envy, competition, backstabbing, and toxic interpersonal dynamics. People smiled to each other's faces while harboring resentment and ill will beneath the surface. And this woman, being naturally sensitive, was absorbing all of that dense, negative energy day after day. Her perispirit had become literally soaked with these toxic fluids, like a sponge that had absorbed too much dirty water. This wasn't depression in the clinical sense. This was energetic contamination at a profound level, and her physical body was responding to the overload happening in her spiritual body. This is the hidden truth about why your body feels the way it does. When your perispirit becomes loaded with negative energy, your physical form can't help but reflect that burden. You wake up with limbs that feel like they're made of lead. Your mind feels scrambled, foggy, unable to focus on even simple tasks. You experience a sadness that has no name, no clear source, no logical explanation. There's a discouragement that seems to come from nowhere, a heaviness that settles over you like a dark cloud. And because there's no obvious cause, you start to question yourself, wondering if you're just weak or if something is fundamentally wrong with you. But the reality is far different. What you're experiencing is energetic, it's spiritual, and it's absolutely real. Now, understanding this opens up an entirely new pathway toward healing, because once you recognize what's actually happening, you can begin to address it at the right level. The journey toward reclaiming your energy starts with recognizing these invisible burdens you've been carrying without even knowing they were there. If you've ever felt inexplicably heavy, despite having no medical explanation for your exhaustion, write in the comments, "I feel this weight." You're not imagining it, and recognizing it is the first step toward transformation. Now, here's something that might surprise you, but it's crucial to understand if you want to reclaim your energy. The space you live in, your home, the place where you should feel most safe and at peace, it can actually be one of the biggest sources of energetic contamination in your life. Think about the atmosphere in your house right now. Is there unresolved tension hanging in the air? Are there arguments that never quite get resolved, just swept under the rug until the next eruption? Is there resentment simmering beneath polite conversations, or silence that feels heavier than words ever could? These aren't just emotional dynamics that affect your mood. According to Edgar Cayce's understanding of energy, these vibrations create an actual atmosphere, a dense, energetic field that permeates every room, every corner, every space you occupy. And your perispirit, that sensitive spiritual body we've been talking about, absorbs it all. You might think you can compartmentalize, that you can keep yourself separate from family conflicts or household stress. But energetically speaking, that's nearly impossible. You're breathing in those vibrations with every breath. You're marinating in them as you sleep. Your spiritual field is being penetrated by this dense atmosphere, whether you consciously acknowledge it or not. This is why so many people feel most exhausted in their own homes, the very place where they should be recharging. The energetic contamination is constant, unavoidable, and deeply impactful. And here's what makes this even more challenging. Most people have no framework for understanding what they're feeling. They assume they're just being too sensitive, that they should be stronger, that something is wrong with them for being so affected by their environment. But the truth is radically different. What you're feeling is not imaginary. It's not weakness. It's not a failure of character or resilience. You are sensing frequencies, vibrations, energetic realities that most people are completely oblivious to. If this resonates with you, and you want to keep exploring these deeper truths about spiritual exhaustion and sensitivity, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. This is where we talk about what most people are afraid to acknowledge, the real, raw experience of being a sensitive soul in a world that doesn't understand. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's actually a form of awareness that many people simply don't possess. You're picking up on the hidden dynamics, the underneath currents, the energetic truth of situations that others can smile through without feeling a thing. And in this moment of human history, that sensitivity is becoming even more pronounced because something massive is happening on a planetary scale. Edgar Cayce brought forth revelations about a transition that Earth itself is undergoing right now. This isn't symbolic language or spiritual poetry. Cayce was describing an actual shift in the planet's vibratory frequency, a transformation that's affecting every living being on Earth, though not everyone is experiencing it in the same way. The planet is literally changing its energetic signature, moving toward higher frequencies, and this shift is creating unprecedented challenges for sensitive souls. Those who are more spiritually attuned are feeling this transition first and most intensely. It's like being the canary in the coal mine. You're detecting changes in the atmosphere that others won't notice until much later. Your body is trying to adjust to these new frequencies while simultaneously processing the old, denser energies that no longer align with where the planet is heading. This creates an incredible internal tension, a push and pull between old and new, dense and light, past and future. Your exhaustion isn't just personal, it's planetary. You're not just dealing with your own energy, you're navigating a massive collective shift that's reverberating through the consciousness of humanity itself. Now, understanding this planetary dimension of your exhaustion changes everything about how you approach your healing journey, because it means you're not broken or defective. You're actually on the leading edge of a transformation that's affecting all of us. If you're starting to see your exhaustion as part of something much bigger than yourself, write in the comments, "I'm part of the shift." Recognizing your role in this planetary transformation is powerful. So what does it actually mean to be on the leading edge of this planetary shift? Well, think of yourself as a spiritual antenna. You know how certain radio receivers can pick up frequencies that others can't detect? That's essentially what's happening with sensitive souls right now. You're tuned to a bandwidth that most people aren't accessing yet. You're receiving signals, vibrations, energetic information that hasn't become visible to the collective consciousness. And just like any antenna that's receiving a strong signal, you feel the impact of what's coming through. This is why your experience feels so isolating sometimes. You're detecting changes that others aren't perceiving yet. You're responding to shifts that haven't materialized in obvious, tangible ways. People around you might seem fine, going about their lives with no apparent disruption, while you feel like you're being turned inside out. But here's the revelation that changes everything. You're not more fragile than they are. You're more receptive. You're picking up on the transformation before it becomes undeniable to everyone else. You're living in the future while others are still comfortable in the present, and that displacement creates an enormous amount of internal tension. What's actually happening inside you during this process is quite extraordinary, though it certainly doesn't feel that way when you're in the thick of it. Your spiritual body is attempting something incredibly complex. It's simultaneously trying to absorb new, higher frequencies while releasing old, dense energies that no longer serve your evolution. Imagine trying to shed your skin without any anesthesia, without any instruction manual, without any preparation for how raw and vulnerable and painful that process would be. That's what your perispirit is going through right now. Every cell of your spiritual body is being asked to upgrade, to recalibrate, to attune to a different frequency than the one you've been operating on for possibly lifetimes. And your physical body? It's trying desperately to keep up with changes that are happening at a speed it wasn't designed to accommodate. This is the hidden truth behind those sudden waves of exhaustion that knock you off your feet without warning. One moment you feel relatively okay, and the next you can barely hold your head up. This isn't random, and it isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's your system processing enormous energetic shifts in real time. That emotional misalignment you feel, where your mood swings wildly without any apparent trigger. That's not emotional instability. That's frequency absorption. Your emotional body is one of the primary processors of these new energies, and as it adjusts, you experience the turbulence of that recalibration, and that urgent need you feel to withdraw from the world, to seek silence, to pause everything and just be still. This is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of the entire transformation. Society tells you to push through, to stay productive, to keep engaging, to maintain your routine. But your soul is screaming for the opposite. It's demanding that you create space, that you honor the magnitude of what's happening inside you, that you allow yourself the time and quietness necessary for this profound internal reorganization to occur. This need for withdrawal isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's your system's innate intelligence, recognizing that transformation of this magnitude requires you to step back from the noise and demands of the external world so that the internal work can happen without interference. Now, what makes this even more complex is that while all of this restructuring is happening, you're also dealing with something else entirely, something that occurs during your sleep that most people have no awareness of. And it might explain why you wake up feeling more exhausted than when you went to bed. If this description of what you're going through feels like someone finally put words to your experience, write in the comments. This is exactly what I'm feeling. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone in this makes all the difference. Here's something that might bring you profound relief. You're not going through this alone. Spiritual teachers and energy workers around the world are reporting the same phenomenon across millions of people. Millions. Let that number sink in for a moment. This isn't some rare condition affecting a handful of unusually sensitive individuals. This is a massive, collective experience that's touching souls across every continent, every culture, every background. People everywhere are reporting the same constellation of symptoms: unexplained tiredness that defies medical explanation, emotional instability that seems to come from nowhere, and an overwhelming desire to isolate and withdraw from normal social engagement. And here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't mental illness. It's not depression in the clinical sense, though it might share some surface similarities. It's not anxiety disorder, though you might feel anxious as your system tries to cope with these changes. It's not moral weakness or a failure of character or a lack of resilience. What you're experiencing is adjustment, pure and simple. Your entire being is recalibrating to match the planet's new energetic frequency. And that process is every bit as real and physical as recovering from surgery or adjusting to a new altitude when you travel to the mountains. Let me share something that perfectly illustrates how misunderstood this process can be. There was a young man who suddenly found himself unable to work for 3 solid months. He couldn't focus, couldn't muster the energy, couldn't maintain the facade of normalcy that his job demanded. He thought he was having a breakdown. His family thought he was being lazy. His friends couldn't understand why he'd just stopped participating in life. The medical establishment had no answers for him because nothing was physically wrong according to their tests. But when he finally consulted with someone who understood the spiritual dimensions of what was happening, he received a message that changed his entire perspective on his situation. The spiritual guidance he received was beautifully simple and yet profound. Your spirit is being reconfigured for superior frequencies. Your physical body needs this time to adapt. Don't fight it. Allow it to happen. Think about the power of that permission. He wasn't broken. He wasn't failing. He was transforming, and transformation requires time, space, and surrender to a process that can't be rushed or controlled. The decision to stop fighting himself, to release the shame and guilt he'd been carrying about his inability to function normally, that was the turning point in his journey. This is the hidden truth about what's happening to you right now. Your physical body is desperately trying to keep pace with spiritual changes that are occurring at a speed evolution never intended. Your spirit is adjusting itself to align with a planet that's being born into a new consciousness, and sometimes your dense material body simply can't match that velocity. There's a lag, a gap between where your spirit is reaching and where your physical form can follow, and that gap is where you feel the exhaustion, the disconnection, the sense that you're not fully inhabiting your own life. And your bed, that place you keep retreating to, that refuge you've been judging yourself for needing so desperately. It's not a prison. It's not a sign of defeat. In this context, your bed becomes something sacred. It's the spiritual womb where your transformation is occurring. It's the chrysalis where the caterpillar dissolves before becoming the butterfly. It's the protected space where your entire being can restructure itself without the interference and demands of the external world. Now, there's another layer to this exhaustion that we need to explore, something that happens while you're in that bed, while you think you're simply resting, but your soul is actually doing something extraordinary that most people have no idea is even possible. If you've ever felt guilty for needing so much time in bed but now you're beginning to see it differently, write in the comments, "I'm transforming." Claiming that truth is part of the healing process. Now here's where things get even more fascinating, and it's something Edgar Cayce understood deeply that modern science is only beginning to acknowledge. Your body is not an isolated entity floating through space, disconnected from everything around you. You're actually embedded in a vast network of cosmic influences that are constantly affecting you at every moment. Cayce taught that we're being influenced by subtle vibrations, solar radiations, magnetic fields, and planetary oscillations that traverse our emotional and spiritual bodies in ways that current scientific instruments can barely measure, let alone fully understand. Think about how you feel on certain days versus others. There are mornings when you wake up and everything feels light, manageable, full of possibility. And then there are those other days when you open your eyes and immediately feel like you're being crushed by an invisible weight. Even though nothing in your external circumstances has changed, what's the difference? Often it's not anything happening in your personal life at all. It's cosmic. The energetic weather, if you will, has shifted, and your perispirit is responding to frequencies coming from far beyond your immediate environment. If something in this video shifted your perspective, even just a little, hit that like button. It's a simple way to let me know this message is reaching the right people, and it helps YouTube show this content to other souls who desperately need to hear it. This is where spiritual astrology becomes relevant, though not in the way most people think about it. We're not talking about daily horoscopes or personality predictions. We're talking about understanding how celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the planets, create energetic fields that directly impact your perispiritual body. These aren't metaphorical influences. They're actual energetic transmissions crossing through space and penetrating your energy field, carrying information, vibrations, and frequencies that your spiritual body must process and integrate. Some days feel inexplicably heavy because you're literally being crossed by cosmic frequencies that are dense, challenging, or misaligned with your personal vibration. Your perispirit is working overtime to maintain equilibrium while these energies pass through you. It's like standing in an invisible current that's pushing against you, and while others might not feel it as intensely, your sensitivity makes you acutely aware of every shift, every change, every wave that moves through the cosmic ocean we're all swimming in. This revelation changes everything about how you understand your exhaustion. You are not just flesh and bone. You're a living receiver of cosmic energies, a biological antenna tuned to frequencies that extend far beyond the visible spectrum. Your nervous system, your endocrine system, your entire physical structure is designed to receive and process energetic information from the universe itself. And when these energies change in intensity, when solar flares erupt, or planetary alignments shift, or magnetic fields fluctuate, your body must recalibrate to accommodate these new frequencies. And where does this recalibration happen most effectively? In bed, in stillness, in that state of rest where your conscious mind releases its grip and your subtle bodies can do the deep work of adjustment without interference. This is why forcing yourself to push through, to ignore your body's demands for rest, to override your system's wisdom, it's not just ineffective, it's actually counterproductive. Your bed becomes the safe harbor where your body can process cosmic information, integrate new frequencies, and adjust itself to match the constantly shifting energetic environment you're living in. Now, there's something else happening during your sleep that goes even deeper than cosmic recalibration, something that might completely transform how you understand why you wake up feeling so drained. If you're beginning to see yourself as more than just a physical body, as an energetic being responding to cosmic forces, write in the comments, "I'm a cosmic receiver." Acknowledging your sensitivity to these forces is empowering. So let's talk about what's really happening while you sleep, because this might be the missing piece that finally explains why you can wake up feeling more exhausted than when you went to bed. Most people assume that sleep is simply a time when your body and mind shut down to recharge, like plugging in your phone overnight. But according to Edgar Cayce's readings and the experiences of countless spiritually sensitive individuals, something far more complex and extraordinary is occurring during those hours of darkness. When you fall asleep, your soul doesn't just rest passively inside your physical body. Instead, there's a partial detachment that occurs. Your consciousness, your spirit, loosens its connection to your physical form and goes out into the spiritual realms. And here's what might shock you. You're not just wandering aimlessly. You're working, you're helping, you're serving in ways that your conscious mind has absolutely no memory of when you wake up in the morning. This isn't fantasy or wishful thinking. This is a documented phenomenon that Cayce described in detail throughout his readings, and it explains a mystery that has puzzled so many sensitive souls. Why rest doesn't actually feel restful. Cayce revealed that during these nighttime journeys, souls are often led by spiritual mentors, guides, and teachers to assist in the work of the spiritual dimensions. You might be helping newly departed spirits who've just crossed over and are confused or frightened about where they are. You might be consoling souls who are suffering, trapped in lower realms because of unresolved traumas or attachments from their earthly lives. You might be supporting lost entities who need guidance, comfort, or simply a compassionate presence to help them find their way. This is real work, silent and invisible to human eyes, but absolutely exhausting to your spirit. Let me share a powerful example that illustrates just how real this nocturnal service is. There was a teacher who woke up exhausted every single day. She'd sleep a full 8 hours, sometimes 9, and still drag herself out of bed, feeling like she'd been working all night. Her doctors ran every test imaginable. Thyroid function, iron levels, sleep studies, everything, all came back normal. There was no medical explanation for her chronic fatigue. But when she finally sought a spiritual reading, the truth emerged in a way that completely transformed her understanding of her exhaustion. She was spending her nights in spiritual hospitals, supporting children who had passed away. Her spirit was being called to comfort these young souls, to ease their transition, to provide the maternal presence they needed as they adjusted to their new reality. Her physical body was indeed resting on her bed, breathing steadily through the night, but her spirit was engaged in intense, emotionally demanding work that required enormous amounts of energy. When she learned this truth, suddenly everything made sense. The dreams she couldn't quite remember, but that left her feeling emotionally wrung out, the sense of having lived through something profound during the night, the exhaustion that felt more emotional and spiritual than physical. Now, understanding this dimension of your nighttime experience opens up an entirely new perspective on your fatigue, because it means you're not just dealing with the challenges of waking life, you're also processing the impact of work you're doing in dimensions you can't consciously access. If you've ever felt like you're more tired after sleeping than before, and this explanation is resonating with something deep inside you, write in the comments, "I'm a night worker." Sometimes, recognizing your unseen service is the first step toward honoring it. Now here's something that might resonate deeply if you've been feeling this exhaustion. Many of you watching this right now are what we call light workers, though you may have no idea that's what you are. You might think that term sounds too grand, too special, too presumptuous to apply to yourself. But the truth is far simpler and more beautiful than any ego-driven claim. A light worker is simply a soul who serves, often without recognition, often without even conscious awareness of the service being rendered. During your sleep, your consciousness separates from your dense physical form and travels to the spiritual planes where you fulfill missions that were agreed upon before you ever incarnated into this life. You're not just randomly wandering through spiritual dimensions. You're answering calls, responding to needs, showing up for souls who require exactly what you have to offer. And then, in the early morning hours, you return to your physical body, sliding back into that dense material form, and you wake up feeling completely depleted. Your physical body technically rested all night, but your perispirit, that spiritual body that actually did the traveling and the work, is exhausted from hours of service. This is why some mornings you wake up with an inexplicable sadness washing over you like a wave. There's no logical reason for it. Nothing bad happened yesterday. You didn't have a nightmare you can clearly remember, and yet you feel this profound heaviness in your heart, as if you've lived through something deeply emotional. What if you actually did? What if during the night you helped someone who was suffering greatly, someone who was trapped in confusion or pain or despair? What if you witnessed trauma, held space for grief, absorbed some of the intensity of another soul's journey? Your conscious mind might not retain the specific details, but your soul brings back the echo of that encounter. And you feel it in your body when you wake. These aren't vague feelings or random mood swings. They're the residue of real experiences happening in dimensions that your waking consciousness can't directly access. You're carrying the emotional impact of your nighttime work into your daytime reality, and your system has to process and integrate all of that on top of whatever your regular waking life demands from you. The burden is real, the exhaustion is legitimate, and understanding this changes everything about how you treat yourself. But there's yet another layer to what happens during sleep that complicates your energetic picture even further. Sleep isn't just a time for present moment spiritual work. It's also a portal to something much older. Your consciousness during sleep can access ancient memories from lives you've already lived, existences you've already experienced, places you've inhabited in different bodies, different times, different circumstances. These aren't fantasies or imagination. According to Cayce's understanding of reincarnation and soul memory, these are actual imprints stored in your perispirit. And sometimes during sleep, these memories leak through the veil and create unexplained emotional responses in your present life. You might wake up with an unnamed fear, a grief that has no source, an anxiety about something that never happened in this lifetime. But it did happen, just not recently. Your soul remembers battles you fought, losses you endured, traumas you survived, and during sleep, those memories can surface, creating emotional turbulence that your conscious mind struggles to make sense of. Now, understanding that your exhaustion might be connected to lifetimes of accumulated experience adds yet another dimension to this complex picture we're building of what's really happening to you. If you're beginning to recognize yourself as someone who works in dimensions beyond the physical, write in the comments, I serve in my sleep. Claiming this identity can help you honor the work you're doing. Let's talk about those dreams that haunt you, the ones that leave an imprint far deeper than ordinary nightmares. You find yourself in landscapes you've never consciously visited in this lifetime. Vast, empty deserts stretching endlessly under a burning sun, ancient monasteries with stone walls and echoing silence, battlefields where the air is thick with smoke and terror. You wake up with your heart tight in your chest, gripped by a nameless anguish that feels completely disproportionate to what was just a dream. But was it just a dream? According to Edgar Cayce's understanding of the soul's journey through multiple incarnations, these vivid experiences are often something much more significant. They're spiritual memories from past lives seeking recognition and healing. Your soul carries imprints from every existence it's ever experienced. Trauma doesn't simply dissolve when the physical body dies. It embeds itself in the perispirit, creating patterns and wounds that can persist across centuries, across multiple lifetimes, waiting for the right moment and the right circumstances to finally be addressed and healed. And sleep, when your conscious mind's defenses are down and your soul has more freedom to communicate, becomes the arena where these ancient wounds surface, asking for attention. There's a profound example that illustrates just how real and persistent these past life traumas can be. A man suffered for years with recurring nightmares of being trapped in dark, suffocating spaces. Dungeons, cells, places of confinement where he could hear the rattle of chains and feel the crushing weight of stone walls closing in on him. He'd wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air, his body responding as if the threat were immediate and real. Traditional therapy didn't touch it because the trauma wasn't rooted in his current life experience. It wasn't until he underwent a spiritual regression that the source finally revealed itself. In a past incarnation, he'd been unjustly imprisoned, locked away for crimes he didn't commit. And he died in that captivity, alone, forgotten, his spirit never having the chance to process the injustice and terror of that ending. That unhealed trauma had literally crossed centuries, dormant but not dissolved, waiting in the deep storage of his soul's memory. And now, in this lifetime, it was surfacing through his dreams, not to torture him, but to finally be seen, acknowledged and released. This is the hidden truth about so much of the exhaustion and emotional heaviness that people carry without understanding why. Unhealed traumas from previous incarnations, karmic debts that need acknowledgement and redemption, destructive patterns that were never broken in past lives, all of these emerge during sleep when the barriers of the conscious mind are lowered and the soul has permission to do its deep work. Your nighttime hours become a processing center for lifetimes of accumulated experience, and your present-day consciousness has to somehow integrate and make sense of emotional data that doesn't connect to anything in your current biography. Now, when you start to see your exhaustion through this lens of soul-level healing work that spans multiple lifetimes, you begin to understand why simple physical rest often isn't enough to restore you, and why there's yet another dimension we need to explore about what drains you during your waking hours. If these recurring dreams or unexplained emotional responses are something you've experienced, write in the comments, "My soul remembers." Acknowledging these deeper memories is part of the healing journey. So let's be absolutely clear about what's happening here. Your body isn't sick and your mind isn't failing. What you're experiencing is a spiritual rescue process, a deep cleansing and healing that operates at the soul level. Those heavy dreams that leave you shaken, those emotional surges that seem to come from nowhere, those moments when past life memories bleed into your present awareness, they're not signs of mental breakdown or psychological dysfunction. They're memories surfacing to finally be seen, understood, forgiven, and released from the burden your soul has been carrying across time. This is the work that many souls came into this lifetime specifically to accomplish. You're not here just to live a comfortable existence and accumulate pleasant experiences. You're here to heal ancient wounds, to break patterns that have repeated across incarnations, to finally resolve what couldn't be resolved before. And that work is exhausting precisely because it's so profound and so necessary. Your fatigue isn't a bug in your system. It's a feature of the transformation you're undergoing. But here's where the challenge intensifies even further. Even when you're awake and moving through your day, you're dealing with another layer of energetic difficulty that most people simply don't understand. You might notice that the moment you leave your home, the moment you step out into the world, your body responds with immediate distress. Your chest tightens, your heart starts racing, your breath becomes shallow and difficult. Nothing threatening has actually happened. You've literally just walked out your front door, but your system is responding as if you've entered a danger zone. This isn't your imagination playing tricks on you, and it's not anxiety disorder in the conventional sense, though it might mimic those symptoms. What you're experiencing is real hypersensitivity to the energetic environment around you. Your energy field has become so refined, so sensitive, so permeable, that it's like an unprotected antenna capturing every frequency in your vicinity. You're picking up on the collective stress, the ambient fear, the unprocessed grief and anger and desperation that saturates public spaces. You're absorbing emotional data from every person you pass, every conversation happening nearby, every conflict playing out in spaces you walk through. There's a powerful story that perfectly illustrates how profoundly misunderstood this sensitivity can be. A young woman found herself unable to function normally. Within minutes of leaving her house, she'd experience what looked exactly like panic attacks. Her heart would pound, her vision would blur, her legs would weaken to the point where she could barely stand. She'd return home defeated, convinced there was something fundamentally broken inside her. Multiple psychiatrists diagnosed her with panic disorder and agoraphobia, prescribing medications that did nothing to address what was actually happening. It wasn't until she consulted with someone who understood the spiritual dimensions of sensitivity that she finally got an explanation that made sense. The medium looked at her and said something that changed her entire life. "You're not sick. You're capturing dense environmental energies. This isn't a disorder, it's misunderstood mediumship." Suddenly, everything shifted. She wasn't defective or mentally ill. She was highly sensitive to energies that most people couldn't perceive, and her system was simply overwhelmed by the intensity of what she was picking up from her environment. Now, understanding this environmental component of your exhaustion is crucial because it means the solution isn't just about healing yourself internally, it's also about learning to protect yourself energetically from the world around you. If you've ever felt immediately drained the moment you stepped into certain spaces or around certain people, write in the comments, "I feel everything." Recognizing your sensitivity is the first step toward managing it. Now, let's talk about something that might feel uncomfortably familiar, the people and places that drain you so completely that you need days to recover. You know exactly who I'm talking about. There are certain individuals who exhaust you just by being in their presence. You don't even have to engage in deep conversation with them. Simply existing in their proximity for 20 minutes leaves you feeling like you've run a marathon. Then there are those places, certain buildings or neighborhoods or even rooms, where your energy drops the moment you walk through the door. And those conversations, the ones that seem innocent enough on the surface, but leave you emotionally and physically depleted for days afterward, replaying in your mind, churning in your system, long after the words have stopped. This isn't about being antisocial or judgmental. This is about recognizing that some people and environments function as energetic drains, pulling from your field whether they intend to or not. And when you're as sensitive as you are, when your boundaries are as permeable as they've become during this planetary transition, you're essentially walking around with an open wound that everyone's pain and density can pour into. You return home. Afterward, retreat to your bed, seeking that neutralization, that sacred reset where you can finally stop giving and start recovering what was drained from you out there in the world. And here's what's crucial to understand. This preference for staying home, this need for solitude and withdrawal, it's not weakness. It's not antisocial behavior or inability to cope with normal life. Edgar Cayce taught something profound about this pattern of retreat. He said that withdrawal is the soul's defense mechanism, not cowardice, but spiritual wisdom. Your soul knows what it needs to survive and function, and right now what it needs is protection from the relentless demands and energetic invasions of the external world. The decision to prioritize home, to create a sanctuary where you can finally let down your guard, where you don't have to manage other people's emotions or absorb their unprocessed pain. This is self-preservation at the deepest level. You're not avoiding the world because you're afraid of it. You're protecting yourself from it because you've learned through painful experience that you cannot give endlessly without replenishing, that you cannot remain open to everyone and everything without eventually collapsing under the weight of all that you're carrying. Your bed, in this context, becomes something sacred. It's a vibratory capsule, a protected space where your natural defenses can finally relax. Out in the world, you're constantly managing your energy, trying to maintain boundaries that keep collapsing, putting on the face that others expect while your inner world is screaming for respite. But in your bed, in that private sanctuary, you can finally stop pretending. You don't have to be okay. You don't have to perform wellness or strength or capability. You can simply be exhausted, vulnerable, and honest about the toll that existence is taking on your sensitive system. This isn't giving up on life. This is honoring the reality of your energetic needs. You're learning something that most people never grasp in their entire lifetime, that your energy is sacred and finite, that not every person deserves access to it, that not every invitation requires acceptance, and that sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is to say no to the world, so you can say yes to your own survival and healing. Now, there's another dimension to this withdrawal that we need to explore. Something about what's happening in the invisible realms while you're seeking this refuge. If you've learned that protecting your energy isn't selfish but necessary, write in the comments, "My energy is sacred." Claiming this truth is part of reclaiming your power. Now here's something beautiful that happens when you make the decision to withdraw and protect your energy. You're not alone in that sanctuary you're creating. Edgar Cayce's readings revealed that when a sensitive soul recognizes its need for retreat and actually honors that need, something extraordinary occurs in the invisible realms. Spiritual benefactors, guides, and protective forces that have been watching over you begin to create around you a barrier of light. This isn't metaphorical. It's an actual energetic shield that filters out dense thoughts, blocks negative influences, and creates a protected space where your spirit can finally restore itself in peace. Think of it as divine collaboration. You make the decision to stop exposing yourself to what depletes you, and in response, higher forces amplify your protection, giving you the energetic breathing room you desperately need. This is why your bed, your room, your home can start to feel like more than just physical space. It becomes consecrated ground where healing happens at depths you can't consciously measure. But there's something else you need to understand about why this protection is so necessary, and it has to do with what's happening in your mind during vulnerable moments. Have you ever noticed thoughts crossing your consciousness that don't feel like yours? Insistent, heavy, sometimes destructive suggestions that seem to come from nowhere. Thoughts telling you you're worthless, that everything is hopeless, that you should just give up. You know these aren't reflections of your true nature, but they're there, persistent and draining. Cayce taught that sensitive individuals can become receptive to mental projections from disturbed spirits or negative thought forms floating in the collective consciousness. This isn't about possession or anything dramatic. It's about energetic vulnerability. Your sensitivity, which is actually a gift, creates openness. And while that openness allows you to receive inspiration, guidance, and higher wisdom, it also means that lower vibrations can slip through when your defenses are down. You're not weak for experiencing this. You're simply operating with doors open that most people keep locked without even realizing they exist. There's another layer to why your exhaustion might be so profound, and it connects to something much older than this lifetime. Some souls come into incarnation carrying the memory of intense action from previous lives. You might have been a warrior who fought in countless battles, a leader who carried enormous responsibility, a revolutionary who gave everything to a cause. Those patterns of constant doing, striving, fighting, they embed themselves deep in the soul's memory. And now, in this lifetime, your spirit is asking for something completely different. It's asking you to stop, to rest, to relearn silence and stillness. You're not lazy. Your spirit has fought too much across too many lives, and it needs this pause to recalibrate, to remember that existence doesn't always have to be struggle and effort and endless battle. Cayce spoke about this with such tenderness. He taught that rest is medicine for the spirit, not punishment. Sometimes the divine literally lays you down because it knows you won't stop on your own. These moments that feel like falling, like failure, like losing ground, they're actually vibratory preparation. You're not losing anything. You're gaining frequency, being elevated from within, being prepared for a version of yourself and a way of being that requires this depth of restoration. Now, as we begin to understand all these layers of why you're so exhausted, we can finally start to see what this journey is actually preparing you for. If you're recognizing that your rest is sacred work and not laziness, write in the comments, "I'm being prepared." Trust that this time is purposeful. So if you've made it all the way here to the end, I want you to know that wasn't an accident. Something in you recognized the truth in what we've been exploring together. And that recognition matters more than you might realize. You're part of a community of sensitive souls who are navigating this challenging but sacred journey and staying connected to content that actually understands what you're going through can make all the difference in those moments when you feel most alone. If this video resonated with you, if it helped you see your exhaustion through a completely different lens, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel. This isn't just another place posting feel-good content. This is a space dedicated to the real, deep, sometimes uncomfortable truths about what sensitive souls are experiencing right now. And there's so much more we need to explore together. Leave a comment, letting me know you made it to the end by writing, "This message found me. I read these comments, and it means something to know that these words are landing with people who truly need to hear them." And if you felt that shift happen inside you at some point during this video, that moment where something clicked into place, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps this message reach other tired souls who are searching for answers in the middle of the night, wondering if anyone understands what they're going through. Now, there's something else we need to talk about, something that builds directly on everything we've covered here today. There's a video right here that goes deeper into how to actually protect your energy in practical ways, how to start reclaiming your power from the things and people that have been draining you. Click and continue with me over there, because understanding what's happening to you is just the beginning. Learning how to navigate it changes everything.